All right, we are using the substitution method here to solve a system of equations. So that is the goal. So you may recall in our previous lesson we talked about solving a system of equations through graphing. And in those situations you look for, if you have two lines, you look for where those two lines intersect. So at this point, and that would be your solution to the system. However, in some instances, either when you graph, the lines don't intersect at a nice point, meaning like it's a fraction or a decimal, or it actually could be easier not to graph and to solve it algebraically. So we have two equations here. We have 3x plus 4y equals 26, and we have y equals 2. And as we're looking at these two systems, notice if we wanted to graph, we'd have to graph y equals 2. We'd have to convert this to slope-intercept form, graph, find where they intersect, and we'd be all set. But there's an easier way to do it through substitution. So we use substitution when you have one of your equations is just x equals or just y equals something. Because what you can do with that is we're saying one of our equations is y equals 2, meaning we can substitute 2 for y in the other. So what that looks like is we take 3x plus 4y, so we can substitute 2 in for y. So we get 26, and then simplify. So 4 times 2 is 8. Subtract 8 from both sides, you get 3x equals 18. Divide both sides by 3, and you get x equals 6. So we're using the fact that y equals 2 to solve for x. And our solution to the system, as with graphing when it was just a point, would be the point or the x and the y value. So we've determined x is 6 and y is 2. So in this case, we were already given y, and we had to solve for x. There are some situations where you're given neither, but have to solve for both. So for example, the second one does that. So with this system, we have 3x plus 4y equals 35. That's our first equation. And our second is y equals 2x plus 6. So in the same way where in the previous one, we plugged in 2 for y or substituted 2 for y into the first equation, in this case, we're told y is equivalent to 2x plus 6. So what we can do here is we can plug in that 2x plus 6 for y in the first equation. And now we have a equation with just one variable, with just x's, so we simplify and solve for x. So to simplify here, using our order of operation, we always start with our grouping, our parentheses. So 4 times 2x gives us 8x, 4 times 6 gives us 24. On the left side, we have two like terms, same variable, same exponent, so we can combine those. 3x plus 8x gives me 11x. Now, we need to get x by itself, so we subtract 24 from both sides and get 11x equals 11. Divide both sides by 11, and we get x equals 1. So, in the same idea though, a solution is not just one value, we need the y value as well. So we have our x value is 1. So if we wanted to write this as a point, we'd have that 1 for the x value. We still need to figure out what y is. So once you have your x value, you can plug that back in or substitute it back into either equation. Makes more sense to plug it into the second one because it's already set up as y equals, so we just simplify the right, and we're all set. So x we found is equivalent to 1, it's equal to 1, so we plug in 1 for x here. We get y equals 2 times 1 is 2, plus 6 is 8. So we get 8 for our y value. So whenever you are using substitution, if you have a situation where you have a variable by itself, so like here we had y by itself, that's a great time to use substitution. But it's best used when you have a lone variable, meaning you just have x equals or just have y equals. Okay, So we'll go through a couple more together here to conclude our notes. And then you'll be getting some practice with your IF. So as we look on the right here, we have another system of equations. We have two equations here, and our goal is to solve for the system. Or rather, let's read the question. If xy is the solution to this system of equations, what is x minus y? So we need to figure out what the solution is, xy, and then we need to use those values, so take x and subtract y from it. So we'll start by finding the solution to the system. So in this case, if we're looking at our steps, notice again we have an equation where we have a lone variable, a variable by itself. We have that y. So what we need to do is substitute 2x plus 6 for y. So I'm just going to write that down. Substitute 2x plus 6 for y. So when we substitute that 2x plus 6 for y, make sure you're using parentheses. Our second step here, now that we have an equation with just x's, is we solve for x. So distribute again. So we get 8x plus 24. Continue to solve for y. Subtract 24 from both sides to get 11x equals 11. Divide by 11 to get x equals 1. Okay, so now that we've solved for x, we know x is equivalent to 1. We should plug in 1 for x in the second equation. So we plug in, you could technically do it in either of them. I'm going to do the second because it's easier. So we plug in 1 for x here. So we'll have y equals 2 times 1 plus 6. 2 plus 6, or 8. And I should note, what we did there was we solved for y. From there, our goal is to figure out what x minus y is. So our last step is to solve for x minus y. So we have our x value is 1, our y value is 8, so that's our solution. So x minus y would be 1 minus 8, or negative 7, and that would be our solution. Okay. You may have noticed exact same problem as this one here. We just walked through, kind of outlined those steps. If instead this were like x equals 2y plus 6, you just reverse. You just start with substituting 2y plus 6 for x, solve for y, then plug in whatever you get for y into the second equation, solve for x, and then you can find x minus y. So it doesn't matter which you have as y equals or x equals, you just plug it into the opposite, do that substitution. Okay. So we've got two more problems here. So with these two problems, again, it says if xy is the solution to the system of equations, what is the value of x plus y? So we'll walk through the first together, and then I'll let you try the second on your own. So this first one, I notice we have y by itself here. So we're going to substitute y, or 4x plus 2 in for y in that first equation. We'll do that up here. So 7x plus 3 times 4x plus 2 equals 44. We distribute. 7x plus 12x plus 6 equals 44. 7x plus 12x is 19x. We subtract 6 from both sides to get 19x alone. 44 minus 6 is 38. Then lastly, to get x by itself, we divide by 19, and we get x equals 2. So you may be like, oh, x equals 2, all done. Nope. We're looking for x plus y, so we still need to figure out what y is. So next, we got to substitute our 2 in for x here. So we'll have y equals 4 times 2 plus x. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. So our y value is 10, or In other words, our point, our solution to the system would be 210. So you may just want to write 210 in there, but nope, that's not what it's asking for. We're figuring out x plus y. So x is 2, y is 10, 2 plus 10 is 12. So 12 would be our solution. Okay. All right. You've got one more problem. Write it down. Go ahead. Solve the problem. Pause the video, and I'll post the solution. All right, this is your solution here. You don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. So our solution here should be 2.5. So if you got that wrong, check through your work and make sure it matches mine. And if you have any questions further, send me an email and reach out. Have a great day.